Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. I'm Finn McDermott and here are your top stories on Thursday, the 26th of February. Sittingbourne sentencing. We hear the result of a manslaughter case at Maidstone Crown Court today following a guilty plea. A roller coaster of emotions. Margate protesters hold demonstration to stop the closure of Dreamland's scenic railway. And reuse, repair, Reebok. We take a look at the Gillingham shoe repair company that fixes hundreds of designer shoes a week.
I cleaned a few of my own shoes, a few of her shoes, and then told a few friends, and then a few friends wanted their shoes cleaned, and it just escalated from there.
But first tonight, a man has been sentenced to 16 years in prison for manslaughter at Maidstone Crown Court today, following the death of a man in Sittingbourne last August. 43-year-old Chris McLean pleaded guilty to the charge after threatening Jay Garrett with a knife, causing Garrett to fall from a wall onto the path of an incoming car. Police and emergency services were called to the scene where Garrett was pronounced dead. Tim Forster is live outside Maidstone Crown Court with the story. So, Tim, what can you tell us about this sentencing?
I'm here outside Maidstone Crown Court, where Chris McLean was sentenced to 16 years in prison following the death of Jay Garrett in August last year. McLean, a 43-year-old with a history of violent behaviour, was facing a charge of manslaughter after the court heard how he chased the victim with a knife, causing him to fall from a 13-foot embankment into the path of an oncoming car. He reportedly yells, "I've got a surprise for you," as he swung his knife at Garrett and wanted to teach Mr. Garrett a lesson over a drug dispute. Prosecutor Ryan Richter told the court that it was the action of swinging the knife that caused Mr. Garrett to run and thus caused his tragic death.
I see. And for people who haven't been following this story, can you give us some background details?
Yes, on the 2nd of August 2025, Jay Garrett, a 32-year-old scaffolder from Chelmsford, was reportedly buying cocaine when he was threatened by McLean. CCTV captured the moment that McLean chased Garrett, causing him to fall into the road, into the path of a car on St Michael's Road in Sittingbourne. The driver of the car called police and they arrived on the scene where Garrett was pronounced dead. McLean was initially arrested on a charge of murder along with two other individuals, Jack Hunt and Daniel Martin. During McLean's arrest, police found a quantity of cocaine, leading to a further charge of possessing a Class A drug with the intent to supply. The trial was set to begin on Tuesday. However, McLean later pleaded to a plea of manslaughter, which was accepted by the CPS only after it was reviewed at the highest possible level, with the family being consulted as well. The two other defendants were cleared of the charge of murder, though Hunt will face a charge in May for supplying cocaine, and Martin was later cleared formally of a charge of perverting the course of justice. The sentencing took place on the day before what would have been Garrett's 33rd birthday. Floral tributes were laid across St Michael's Road, with one reading, "Special partner, forever and always in my heart, I love you." A number of statements from the family were also read in court, with one describing Garrett as full of life, full of love, and always close to his family.
I see. Thank you so much. That was Tim Forster there outside of Maidstone Crown Court. Next, a man in his 50s has died after a fatal collision near Sittingbourne. The crash took place yesterday around 10 a.m. yesterday morning in Swale Way in Kemsley. A red Ford Fusion had been heading across Swale Bridge towards the A249 when it crossed onto the opposite carriageway. It then struck a white Mercedes lorry going in the opposite direction. Police, paramedics, an air ambulance and firefighters were sent to the scene, but the man was pronounced dead. The road was closed for around 9 hours following the crash. Next, nearly 2,000 homes in Lamberhurst and Horsmondon had their water supply restored following a major outage earlier today. The disruption began at around 4 a.m. when a technical issue at the Buell Water Treatment Works caused water storage tank levels to plummet. Residents in Lamberhurst and Horsmondon were left with little to no water throughout the morning as South East Water conducted unexpected emergency repairs. Engineers resolved the fault by the early afternoon, with supplies confirmed as fully restored by 1 in the afternoon. Next, homelessness charity Porchlight has warned that rough sleepers in Kent and Medway have risen by 17% from last year. They've called the rise a serious and urgent crisis, with 174 people sleeping rough on a single night last autumn. The highest numbers of recorded rough sleepers at that time were in Thanet, Canterbury and Folkestone. The figures were published today in the government's annual Rough Sleeping Snapshot for England. While the national figure was 4,793, a 3% rise, Kent is showing a greater increase. We spoke to Sarah Mills from Porchlight earlier on today about the issue.
We work with people that become homeless or have issues around housing. There's a number of reasons that lean into that. Over the last year, the primary reason that we've seen for people becoming homeless is about family breakdown. So people just not being able to live in the home that they currently were. You know, that can be for a number of reasons. A slightly lesser percentage we're seeing, but I think a worrying number is people that are becoming homeless in relation to falling behind in rent or mortgage payments. And I think, you know, we hear a lot about the cost of living and increasing pressures. And I think we're really seeing that as a key reason why some of the people we're working with are being homeless or being made homeless. But I think to narrow it down to one reason, Kate, it's really difficult because it's actually complex and it's often multiple reasons.
Next, debates around the future of the scenic railway at Dreamland have raged on in Margate as locals and councillors appeal for answers. It comes after the park's operator announced it would be closing the Grade 2 listed roller coaster after 105 years earlier this month. But the closure has raised questions. This is all over the future of Dreamland and the park's ownership. Now we have a quick recap of everything we know so far. Let's take a look. Brought to you actually by Chloe. Chloe's going to give us that quick recap. Apologies there. She joins me in the studio now to tell us more. So, Chloe, what makes the scenic railway so special to the people of Margate?
Well, anyone who lives in Margate will know and recognise the scenic railway. It's a big wooden structure. It's very, very familiar to many, many people. Now, people love it because of how old it is. It's one of the only scenic railways in the country. It's the oldest roller coaster in Britain. People, their grandmas know the roller coaster. They've been on it. They've had a great time. Their parents, their kids. Yeah, it's really, really enjoyable for people. Now, when I was in Margate earlier this month, I saw the railway. That's when I found out that the scenic railway would be closing. People were telling me stories about it. They were coming up to me constantly saying how much fun it was, how gutted they are. Many of them knew because they actually, in the scenic railway, every single coaster had to have a driver actually driving each carriage. So people knew those people, and it was a really, really powerful thing for many people. It's embedded into people's childhoods. We can hear from a few people now just about what the coaster meant to them.
From the age of 9, I've been going on the scenic railway, enjoying the rattles, the noises, and just the general feel of the roller coaster. It's just amazing. Not everywhere you can go and ride a 102-year-old roller coaster. You know, it's special. It really is special.
I always say that as a theme park, you could actually get rid of all the other rides as long as you had the scenic railway because of the heritage. And it's part and parcel of people coming on holiday, part and parcel of coastal history.
So, Chloe, who's really leading the charge to keep the scenic railway alive?
So that clip we just saw there, Nicholas Chamberlain, that's the first guy who spoke. He's really leading the charge. He was very, very vocal on Facebook about how much he wanted to keep the scenic railway around. When I was speaking to him, he was telling me memories of when he was younger with his family members, them taking him on the ride. He was backing a petition that got thousands of signatures to keep the scenic railway there and in progress. He seems to be front and centre at most of these protests. There was one earlier this month, and there was also one that they were planning on going to today. That was at a council meeting where Councillor Rick Everett had tabled a motion about the scenic railway's closure, and he was actually calling for Dreamland to work alongside the council and figure out a way to keep the scenic railway around. They wanted to see what the thinking process was at getting to the point of closure. They seem to think there's more to this than what it seems. And He's also written to Historic England, that's Councillor Rick Everett, and the National Lottery Heritage Fund, asking them to share their correspondence on the subject to further understand their position on it. He also said that while he recognised that this was ultimately a commercial decision, unless the detail is sort of shared about how they came to that decision, that it's bound to disappoint people.
And very quickly, can you just tell us what Dreamland have said?
So Dreamland said that this isn't the end but a new beginning for the ride, saying it was committed to developing a new long-term vision to showcase that listed structure.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Chloe. Now let's take a quick look at the weather. Well, tonight it doesn't look like we'll be treated to any of that nice sun we've been seeing recently. 11 and 12 across the board there. Some high wind speeds as we go into tomorrow morning, with the rain pouring down. 15 in the west, 17 there in the east, 10 and 11. Now into tomorrow afternoon, that rain is starting to go away, staying there in Ashford. However, temperatures rising slightly to 11 and 12. And here is your outlook. Some sun on Saturday, returning to rain on Sunday. Monday, more sun coming out, highs of 13. That's all the time we have for now, but coming up after the break, we'll be speaking with Connie Huck, who's inviting people to get involved with the National Innovation Challenge. She'll be judging young people on their ideas for the future, all with the theme of sustainability and AI. All that and more after this short break. See you in a few minutes. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. Now, a higher than average number of adults in Kent believe AI skills are the most important skill for young people to learn. 44% of all adults in the country think that adapting to new tech is a priority, with 6% more people in Kent in agreement. This comes alongside calls for students to get more real-world experience with AI and receive better education on it in schools. Our reporter Chloe Brewster spoke to Connie Huck, Blue Peter's longest-running female presenter, all about AI literacy and her creative challenge for young people.
So you talk a lot about obviously learning more about AI. You know, part of this is we were finding out that 50% of adults in Kent believe that adapting to AI and new tech will be one of the most important life skills for young people. Is that something that you agree with?
I do definitely think the genie is out the bottle, and if you can't fight it, feel it. You're absolutely right. We did a survey and found that more than 3/5 of people agree that AI is becoming essential in the modern workplace, and so young people that understand it will obviously have a clear advantage. But we also want people to grow up having creativity and problem-solving skills. We want critical thinking, because it's very important that we work with AI as a society. You need to understand something and be literate in it, essentially. And our survey found that nearly half of all people believe AI education should be introduced earlier in schools. But the flip side is nearly 3/4 of adults think that young people no longer have real-world experience. So we're living in really changing times. Everything's in a state of flux.
What kind of things are you seeing AI being used for more and more in the workplace? I know you have a background in broadcasting, you used to present Blue Peter. Can you tell us a little bit about how AI impacts the workplace nowadays?
Absolutely. So AI is everywhere. So yes, in broadcasting, it's used a lot. People are worried that sort of writers will become redundant and scripts will be written. But with AI, I just did a stint on Pointless last week as the sort of quiz question person, essentially. And it's funny because a lot of the time when we don't know something, if it's facts or trivia, you know, in the old days you might have to go to a library or whatever. Now you can just ask ChatGPT for the answer to almost anything and everything. So AI is something that is becoming a sort of easy substitute for us sort of doing groundwork ourselves. It could almost be seen as a bit of a lazy tool to use to get to your end products a bit earlier. And certain jobs like accountancy are already seeing lots of people being replaced by AI. So what this competition, the National Innovation Challenge, is all about is coming up with concepts or business ideas or prototypes on the theme of sustainability or AI that can help make the world a better place in the future, because we are living in a totally changing world.
So the challenge is open to secondary school students and above, but how much is AI currently being used in schools? Are students now well versed in AI?
So I'd say where we're at the moment, students and people in general are well versed in using AI as a shortcut to answer questions without having to maybe look up information. If students are doing a project, for instance, or doing their homework and they need the answers to questions. But slowly, as you realize, oh, this is an easy way to get to my solution, then people start maybe downloading the app and having a dedicated AI app on their phone. And then it can become a slippery slope. You think, oh, well, if AI can do that, then maybe it can give me advice on my boyfriend or whatever it is. And then, you know, before you know it, you have stories in the paper about people getting married to an AI. So, you know, it is in its early stages at the moment, and young people aren't using it as much as I do see will happen in the future. But this competition is something that uses children's critical thinking, problem solving and creativity within the theme of AI.
Now, don't forget, you can keep up to date with all your latest stories across Kent by logging on to our website. That's kmtv.co.uk. There you'll find all our reports, including this one about a beach in Folkestone that's set to have regular water testing to ensure locals can safely swim.
Last year, raw sewage was dumped into UK waterways almost 1 million times. Surfers Against Sewage reported that in 2024 they received 1,853 sickness reports because of infected water, reflecting nearly £500,000 in lost productivity due to sick days taken. But pollution has an impact not only on the economy, but for nature and people's well-being. Sandgate Beach here in Folkestone is set to become one of the UK's newest bathing spots. But should beaches really be ruled in as safe, rather than being ruled out as unsafe?
I've grown up in Sandgate and I've always been in the sea, loved the water. I just started swimming every single day since 2019. And then in 2021, I started a swim coaching business. I suffered a lot with anxiety years ago. And since going in here every day, I've become much more calmer.
The label of designated bathing spot essentially means the waterway will receive regular quality testing throughout the bathing season, which is May through to September. Sandgate Beach is the only beach in Kent set to become a new designated bathing spot.
You know, that huge amount of awareness and publicity has brought this to fruition, and I think that's huge. But I think there's still a gap between policy and real world experience, because I think people are still having to cancel their swims and change their routines, and it has a massive impact on people's health and well-being. I've seen a real growth in open water swimming. You know, it wasn't a thing that people did really before the pandemic, and it's grown so much. But I've seen the numbers decreasing in the last couple of years since the awareness has been brought up, which has been wonderful, but it's certainly put people off going in the water.
The Environment Agency say the consultation comes alongside reform of the water system, with the Water Special Measures Act introducing tougher enforcement powers. That includes criminal liability for water bosses who cover up illegal sewage spills, and the power to block bonuses. Last year, £4 million of bonuses were prevented from reaching bosses' pockets.
More needs to be done to clean up our waterways. A total transformation of the system, of the water system, needs to be implemented. Currently, the government and their recent white paper isn't doing enough to do that, especially in relation to public health. We need a regulator that enforces the law. Swimming in our rivers, lakes or beaches is so proven to be good for our physical and mental health. It's also in terms of those kind of seaside towns, it's great for the local economy. So having clean water benefits people, business, and just nature. I think there's the knock-on effects of more bathing waters. There'll be co-benefits to cleaning up our waterways to improve the environment and nature as well.
Back on the beach, Kirsty kindly offered to coach me to become a sea swimmer, but I think it's a little bit too chilly for me to get my costume on just yet. Chloe Brewster for KMTV in Sandgate.
No, not for me.
Well, let's see if the weather is any better than it was for Chloe that day in Folkestone. Let's have a look. Well, this evening we're going to have some pretty high winds, 20 there near Margate, temperatures of 11 and 12. Some rain greeting us tomorrow morning, temperatures staying about the same, slightly lower, and high wind speeds staying, slightly slowing down for the afternoon. Temperatures raising up again a little bit, 11 and 12 across the county. Temperatures of 10 degrees on Saturday and Sunday. Sunday bringing some rain with it, and the sun peaking out on Monday, 13 degrees. Next, a £15 million investment into a Eurohub freight terminal is predicted to have a great effect on Kent roads, potentially reducing the amount of large lorries on the roads by 140,000. The money would pave the way for freight trains to carry cargo and containers through the Channel Tunnel. I spoke with Kent Online's business editor Chris Britcher earlier. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Chris. First of all, can you summarise the £15 million investment? Where exactly is this going, and how exactly could it benefit Kent's roads?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, basically, it doesn't sound like it's very Kent-related initially, at least. The money is going to go into what's known as the Barking Eurohub, which is a freight rail terminal just at the east of London. But basically, it's the only freight terminal that can link into HS1, which is obviously the high-speed rail link that wishes through the Channel Tunnel. So the significance here is that whereas it has been horrifically underutilised since it was first built, that the plan now is to shift more and more freight from the road onto trains, which can then travel from this point through onto the continent. And obviously the benefit for the people of Kent is that it should reduce quite dramatically the number of lorries on our roads. There is talk it could reduce it by as much as sort of 450,000 lorry movements a year, which is obviously significant.
Absolutely. There's previously been criticism of sort of anti-congestion measures like Operation Brock for causing heavy congestion and for costing hundreds of thousands to deploy and maintain. So do you believe that more freight going on the rails could maybe see Brock deployed less?
You would hope so, and certainly the hope is that is exactly what will happen. That if there's a reduction in the number of freight, then there's not going to be that bottleneck every time there's ever any sort of delay at any of our port terminals. The only issue, and which I would guard against, is that as we progress, more and more lorries come onto our roads anyway. So it's a bit like building the Lower Thames crossing. Yes, it will surely make a difference initially, but as traffic numbers grow, there is a danger that somewhere down the road before too long we'll be back in the same position. But it's a very positive move in the right direction. It makes all the sense in the world, really. It's more environmentally friendly, and if it sort of stops our motorway network and the knock-on effect it has on local roads, then so much the better. There's even talk that it'll ease the pothole situation, which I suspect will remain to be seen because it is pretty dreadful out there at the moment. But it's another positive.
Well, that's all the time we have for this part of the show, but we have plenty more coming your way. We'll be returning to our top story tonight about a man who died in Sittingbourne after a chase with the perpetrator today, charged with manslaughter. All that and more after this short break. Hello and welcome to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. I'm Finn McDermott and here are your top stories on Thursday, the 26th of February. Sittingbourne sentencing. We hear the result of a manslaughter case at Maidstone Crown Court today following a guilty plea. A roller coaster of emotions. Margate protesters hold demonstration to stop the closure of Dreamland's scenic railway. And reuse, repair, Reebok. We take a look at the Gillingham shoe repair company that fixes hundreds of designer shoes a week.
I cleaned a few of my own shoes, a few of her shoes, and then told a few friends, and then a few friends wanted their shoes cleaned, and it just escalated from there.
But first, our top story tonight. A man has been sentenced to 16 years in prison for manslaughter at Maidstone Crown Court. This is following the death of a man in Sittingbourne last August. 43-year-old Chris McLean pleaded guilty to the charge after threatening Jay Gerrett with a knife, causing Gerrett to fall from a wall into the path of an oncoming car. Police and emergency services were called to the scene, where Gerrett was pronounced dead. Tim Forster is live outside Maidstone Crown Court with the story. So, Tim, what can you tell us about today's sentencing?
Yes, I'm here outside Maidstone Crown Court, where Chris McLean was sentenced to 16 years following the death of Jay Gerrett in August last year. McLean, a 43-year-old man with a history of violent behaviour, was facing a charge of manslaughter as the court heard how he chased the victim with a knife, causing him to fall from a 13-foot embankment into the road, into the path of a car on St Michael's Road in Sittingbourne. He reportedly yelled, "I've got a surprise for you," as he swung his knife at Gerrett and had wanted to teach Mr Gerrett a lesson following a drug dispute. Prosecutor Ryan Richter claimed that it was this action with the knife that led to the victim's tragic death.
I see. And for people who haven't been following this story, can you give us some more background information?
Yes, on the 2nd of August 2025, Jay Gerrett, a 32-year-old scaffolder from Chelmsford, was reportedly buying cocaine when he was threatened by McLean with the knife. CCTV captured the moment that McLean chased Gerrett into the road, where he, as we say, was struck by the car. Police were called to the scene by the driver of the car, where Gerrett was pronounced dead. McLean was initially charged with murder alongside two other individuals, Jack Hunt and Daniel Martin. However, during McLean's arrest, police found a quantity of cocaine, leading to a further charge of possession of a Class A drug with intent to supply. The trial was initially set to take place on Tuesday, the 24th of February. However, McLean pleaded guilty to manslaughter. This plea was only accepted by the CPS after it had been reviewed to the highest level and members of the family had been consulted. The two other defendants were cleared of the murder charge, though Hunt will face the courts in May over possession of cocaine and supplying cocaine to Gerrett. While Martin was facing a charge of perverting the course of justice, this too has been cleared following a lack of evidence. The sentencing took place the day before what would have been Gerrett's 33rd birthday. Tributes were laid across St Michael's Road, with one reading, "Special partner, forever and always in my heart, I love you."
Thank you so much for bringing us all the latest details on that, Tim. Now, don't forget you can keep up with all your latest stories across Kent by logging on to our website, kmtv.co.uk. There you'll find all our reports, including this one about a Tunbridge Wells restaurant that's up for a national award for their burgers.
What does it take to be a burger champion? Richard from Tunbridge Wells knows it all too well. Last year, his business Roddy Burger came second in the National Burger Awards, but this time around, he's going for gold.
Yeah, so we started during lockdown. We rented a pub kitchen. It was very much something to do to cover my mortgage effectively. And that went so well that we then, when we came out of lockdown, we rented another pub kitchen and that went really well. And then we opened here nearly 4 years ago. We've just got busier and busier year on year, month on month. The community support us really well here. Without them, we're nothing. So it's kind of testament to what we do that people keep coming back.
Richard is one of 16 finalists to make it to the National Burger Awards this year, and there they will face off to see who can create the best burger.
We've put the same burger in as last year. We've made a few small tweaks to it. It's called the Gazza, named after England footballer Paul Gascoigne, who scored my favourite goal. And yeah, fingers crossed.
Richard gave me a peek at how he makes his signature burger.
So the Gazza starts off life with a toasted demi-brioche bun and then our signature house sauce. So for the Gazza, we smash 2 patties into the grill, season with Maldon sea salt, with 2 rashers of smoked streaky bacon, and then we sandwich the bacon in between and then cover it with a cloche so that the cheese melts quickly rather than overcooking the burger. And then we have a bit more sauce on the top. And then we pickle our own onions. And there you go.
The live final takes place next month, where participants will cook up their best in 3 rounds before being blind tested. I gave it a try myself.
Let's give it a go.
While my burger eating skills are clearly not award-winning, I'm wishing Roddy Burger the best of luck at next month's final. Chloe Brewster for KMTV in Tunbridge Wells.
Next, did you know that according to National Literacy Trust data, only 1 in 3 children say they enjoy reading? That's the lowest level in 20 years. So, with World Book Day fast approaching, we wanted to speak to a Kent author about how to get children engaged with reading again. Annabelle Steadman grew up in the Kent countryside, going to school in Canterbury before shooting to stardom with her Sunday Times and New York Times best-selling fantasy series, Skandar. And I'm pleased to say Annabelle joins us now live. Annabelle, thank you so much for your time. Now, first of all, in case our audience isn't familiar with your books, can you tell us a little bit about your works?
Of course. So the Skandar series features unlikely heroes, elemental magic, and most importantly, bloodthirsty unicorns. And Skandar Smith, the main character, he grows up in Margate at the beginning of the book. So it is very Kent-based at the beginning.
Brilliant, brilliant. And so did Kent really serve as a large inspiration? You mentioned there the main character being born in Margate. Tell me a bit more about that.
So I think that because I'm from there, it's nice to kind of write a place that you know, but also it's really lovely actually returning to Kent now and meeting fans and young readers who I think they like to see themselves in books. I think it helps them to start reading if they can kind of recognise something in themselves and in the book. So it's really great to meet those fans and hear how much they enjoy the series.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned earlier, children's interest in reading does seem to be dropping. Why do you think that might be?
I think there are lots of distractions. I think that we can understand it as adults as well. I mean, I as an author also struggle to carve out that time to read. You know, that we're on our phones and we're maybe watching TV. There's lots of other things that we're doing. And I think children struggle with that too. But I think that if we, for example, picked up a book rather than the phone sometimes and we modelled that for children, that could be a way to kind of bring back books and get them excited about it. Because unless they see us doing it, they're not going to do it.
Absolutely. Now, can you tell me a little bit about what drew you into becoming an author?
I think that I had always loved stories, and I really I liked going to the library with my grandma. I used to go to Deal Library kind of every week. She used to take me and I used to borrow lots of books from there. And so I think having that choice, being able to choose a book, that was really important to me growing up, and it let me find things that I like. And that's something that we really think is important for World Book Day as well. These kind of £1 books, you can swap for free with your voucher. You get to choose whichever one. You might not choose Skandar and the Secret Element, but you might choose a different one. And I think that really made me want to become an author, that I could write anything I wanted and my imagination was mine. And I could put all those stories into my own story.
Absolutely. You mentioned World Book Day there. When I was in school, I remember dressing up, becoming a different character, guessing who the teachers were. Can you tell me a little bit about, you mentioned their £1 books. Tell me a bit more about the plans for World Book Day.
So I think that it's just the whole week, lots of children's authors go into schools. I'm going to be going into schools doing some visits because seeing an author in real life can really kind of bring stories to life that might get you to try something that you might not have wanted to before. And I think because they're so bite-sized, they're so short, and they're not very kind of intimidating to pick up. So if you want to try something, it's a perfect time to do that. And as you say, I think the costumes and the dressing up, that really puts books front and centre. So this year is the National Year of Reading as well. So if you're going to really try something new, try reading out. This is the week to do it as we head into World Book Day.
Brilliant. And just before we go, I'm very curious, how do you sort of like to set up best with a book? A warm drink, maybe is there like a reading nook? Tell me about your own ways of getting into the habit of reading.
You know, this is going to sound really strange, but since I was quite young, I used to read on the stairs. I don't know why that was, but I used to sit halfway up the stairs and I would read on the stairs. I think it's because I felt like I wasn't sitting in a room with other people, but I could kind of hear what was going on in the house. So it meant I could concentrate on the book and not get distracted. So you'll probably find me halfway up the stairs somewhere reading a fantasy book.
Brilliant. Well, I'll have to give that one a try. Thank you so much, Annabelle. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, we have plenty more coming for you after this short break. We'll get a taster of the top stories on Kent Online right now, keeping you up to date and in the loop with the key current affairs in the county with David Brooks Horsley. Any animal lovers, keep an eye out. We've got a story about a litter of 17 puppies. You'll also see a report I've done into a Gillingham independent business who's selling their cleaning skills to the masses, turning dirty designer shoes into sparkling clean kicks. I'll even have a go at some professional shoe cleaning myself. Fair warning, I probably shouldn't quit my day job. Well, all that and more after this short break. Hello and welcome back to Kent Tonight, live here on KMTV. Now, as always here in the Garden of England, there's plenty of news from across the county, whether it's congestion in Canterbury or demonstrations in Dover. Today's news features a delay to an urban improvement project from poor weather, a rebuild of one of Kent's most popular play parks and a record-breaking litter of puppies in Canterbury. David Brooks-Horsley joined me earlier to tell me more about the headlines.
Well, it's made the headlines because, as I'm sure many of our viewers are aware, there is a lot of construction happening in Canterbury at the minute, involving a lot of motorists. Now, this project is meant to be finished by April, was the estimated time. It's still going ahead for that time, so fear not. However, the weather that we've been facing in January recently has had significant impact on the progress, which, as I'm sure many are aware, there is that one-way traffic temporarily in this area, which is causing a lot of carnage.
Carnage, so some delays there for anyone driving,
yes,
they can expect.
Definitely, and that was meant to have been sorted by February, the end of February. That's now no longer can be possible because of that wet weather. However, Canterbury City Council are adamant that this will be completed by April, as said.
OK, brilliant, brilliant. Well, we've got another story I believe you've got for us. Now, this is one certainly for the animal lovers.
Yes.
Talk us through it. How many puppies have been born? And I believe it is record-breaking, so tell us a bit more about that.
Yes, we have 17 Irish Doodle puppies, as you can see on the screen,
Very
and
cute.
they are very adorable. Yeah, so on the 2nd of January at 11 a.m, Marigold, the mum of these puppies, gave birth to her first one. Now, as owner Miranda says, they kept popping out until midnight when the 17th one came about.
Right, wow. Well, I see. And what exactly is going to happen to the puppies? They're going to find new homes?
Yeah, well, tomorrow, so Friday, Miranda and her family will be taking all 17 puppies to the vets for their immunisations and vaccinations. The vets are very eager and excited for this, to meet them all, and then, yeah, Miranda's looking at selling them for around £1,300 each.
Right.
And there is a lot of interest, I'm aware.
Oh, well,
yeah.
Brilliant. I didn't know that puppies could go for that much. Well,
No.
We've got one more story. You've brought us all about a play park in Folkestone. So tell us, what's the news about this play park?
Well, this play park, as I'm sure, again, many of the viewers are aware of, is one of the best in Kent and has been for nearly or over 2 decades
One of the most
now.
popular, I believe.
Yes,
Yeah.
one of the most popular. And in the end of last year, it had to be shut due to some construction work surrounding the cliff area around it and the safety. Now, luckily, we have here a new illustrated image of what this play park is going to turn into. And yeah, will be open for summer, which I'm sure lots of families and kids are excited for their summer holidays by the coast.
Absolutely. That is all the time we have, David, but thank you so much for bringing us all that latest news. Next, for small businesses here in Kent and across the country, times are tough. But one Gillingham shoe repair store has stepped into a new office simply because of how busy they are. Sneakers Prep work with designer brand shoes, cleaning, repainting and restoring the luxury brands. But how is this so popular? They oftentimes work with anywhere from 50 to 75 pairs of shoes at a time. And it's not just shoes, they work with hats, bags, even restoring sentimental items. Well, to find out more and to have a go myself, I went down to their new office at the historic Dockyard Chatham to find out more.
Since 2018, Sneakers Prep have been putting one foot in front of the other, building a shoe repair business in Medway that serves Kent and beyond. And now, business has gotten so big, they've moved into a new premises in the historic Dockyard in Chatham that they had to transform into the office they have today. But the idea for the business started in an unconventional way.
Yeah, so going back to 2018, I used to chuck my shoes in the washing machine like most people, and one pair came out looking a little worse for wear, and I thought to myself, there must be a better way. And then that Christmas, my now wife Sarah bought me a sneaker cleaning kit. I cleaned a few of my own shoes, a few of her shoes, and then told a few friends, and then a few friends wanted their shoes cleaned, and it just escalated from there.
Since then, the shoes they repair tend to be luxury brands like Gucci or Yves Saint Laurent. And unlike people might assume, it isn't just a quick wash. There's a lot of detail within the shoe that needs to be cleaned, repainted or stuck back together. Now, when you hear shoe cleaning, you might just think of scrubbing or maybe even chucking it in the washing machine, but there's actually a lot more detail and nuance that needs to go into it, especially when you're working with designer brand shoes. Some people assume it would take a matter of hours and just a quick bit of scrubbing, but it can take up to a week to make sure that the shoes are as clean as when they were first in the box. And it's not just a bucket of hot water and a scrubbing brush. There's actually quite a few tools you might not expect. So to show you that it's not exactly as easy as you might expect, I thought I'd take a crash course.
These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days these boots are gonna...
Well, there you go. Not exactly brand new. It's certainly a little bit better than it was, but don't think I'll be opening up my own business anytime soon. I reckon I'll stick to journalism. While it might be the main part of their business, it isn't just shoes they work on.
We have had some sentimental items in, so we had a lady whose granddad passed away, and we had his wallet to restore. We also had a lady whose brother had passed away, and the shoes that she would like him buried in, she asked for them to be cleaned and restored as well. So there is that element of things that are not expensive but very sentimental as well.
The building took a lot of work to be ready, and it's even a grade-listed property. But for Sarah and Nick, with more orders coming in from across the county, it might be busy, but it's just another step in the right direction. Finn McDermott for KMTV in Chatham.
Yep, definitely not quitting the day job there. I'll have to stick to reading the news and reading the weather. With that in mind, let's have a look at our forecast. And tonight, it's looking quite mild, 11 and 10 degrees with some high wind speeds across the county. Into tomorrow morning now, 10 and 11 degrees with rain pouring down, slightly slower wind speeds across Kent there. Now into the afternoon, 11 and 12 across the county, slowing down even more, 11 and 15 miles per hour, 11 and 12 degrees. And here's your outlook, 10 degrees for Saturday and Sunday. Some light sun on Saturday and Monday, rain on Sunday, raising to 13 degrees on Monday. And just after this, we'll have Kent Film Club, where the show's presenter Chris Deasy interviews those from the county all about their favourite films. But before that, I'm pleased to say he joins me here in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us, as always, on a Thursday, Chris.
A pleasure, Finn.
Absolutely. First of all, talk us through some of the BAFTAs highlights. There were a lot of films that were receiving awards, but were there any that you felt were especially deserving of those acclaims?
Well, I Swear was definitely a good outcome. And it's always nice. It was the same a few years ago when Joanna Scanlon won Best Actress for a British film. She was up against Hollywood royalty like Lady Gaga. And it happened again this year with Robert Mayo, who is not a well-known actor outside the UK, but beating the likes of Timothée Chalamet and Leonardo DiCaprio, who were in the audience and who were perhaps more expected to win. I mean, that's the thing about the BAFTAs. There was a time, it was quite famous with Hugh Grant back in the 1995 BAFTAs, when he won for Four Weddings and a Funeral and actually made the point in his acceptance speech that, you know, he was more likely to have won than John Travolta for Pulp Fiction, who was in the audience, because the BAFTAs like to recognise homegrown talent. But at the same time, even at that ceremony, Samuel L. Jackson won Best Supporting Actor for Pulp Fiction. So it goes to show that they can sometimes make choices, give awards. There have been occasions when someone like Sam Mendes for American Beauty won the Oscar. He's a British director, but he lost in the BAFTAs just a month later. So sometimes they do give you a better indication than some of the other award ceremonies like the Golden Globes as to what will do well in the upcoming Oscars in the middle of March.
I see. Were there any films that you thought didn't get the recognition maybe they deserved?
I mean, I've mentioned Song Sung Blue on this before, the Neil Diamond film. I mean, Kate Hudson was nominated for Best Actress. But when you look at films like One Battle After Another, it's actually really quite satisfying because Paul Thomas Anderson is quite an edgy filmmaker. He made Boogie Nights and Magnolia and Phantom Thread, but has never really done that well in the award stakes. Actually, Licorice Pizza did get a BAFTA a few years ago, but this, although in the Oscars, Sinners got more nominations, One Battle After Another got more nominations in the BAFTAs, and came out trumps with, I think, 6 wins, with Sinners on 3, the same number as Frankenstein. So I think if we carry that forward into next month's Oscars, my bet is on One Battle After Another winning. So it was quite a satisfying win. And Sean Penn, perhaps the unexpected winner in the Best Supporting Actor category.
Absolutely. We haven't got too much time left, but I'm curious what you make of this. I've heard speculation online that there's almost a kind of recency bias when it comes to some of these large award shows, that films that came out later in the year, closer to award season, tend to do better. What do you make of that?
That is true, because the Hollywood studios deliberately put out their best films by Christmas Day. That's the deadline in America for awards consideration. But Erin Brockovich, classically 25 years ago, was released in May. Sinners released in May last year, and that's one of the favourites to win, indeed, as it was at the BAFTAs and will be at the Oscars. So sometimes films do have longevity, but I remember Dunkirk, when that came out in 2017. It was in everyone's minds in the summer when it came out, and then I think by the time of the Oscars the following year, it had fallen away slightly from consciousness.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us,
Pleasure.
Chris, and our viewers can catch you just after this. You've been watching